Hello, and welcome back to Specimen the Sociologist. This is your host, Jessamyn Reichmann. If you're new here, welcome. I have a very spunky way of introducing myself, and that is my name, Jessamyn, rhymes with specimen, but with a J. I am a budding sociologist who is radically in love with people, and this love has set me on a quest to not only understand the science behind our social lives, but also to explore how that knowledge can help stabilize our social interactions. Before we dive into today's episode, I would love to give an artist spotlight to my dear friend, Christy Kioko. Now, not only is she a fashion icon and a model, but she is also a singer. And in this past season, she created her first Christmas EP with Afrobeats and really strong ties to her Kenyan identity. So I know that the Advent season has passed us, but it's not too late to add it to your favorite Christmas playlist and prepare for the new year. So I'll make sure to attach your information at the end of today's episode. Now, returning back to business, today we are going to dive into a new principle in a pod. Now, if you haven't heard this segment, listen up. While peas might serve as the substance of pods, one day I thought to myself, how could principles serve as a substance of this podcast? Get it? Podcast? Okay. Well, anyways, while science is important, it's crucial that we remain sensible in how we both consume and steward information. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's principle, and that is discernment. In our last episode, we spoke about Erving Goffman's dramaturgical theory, which suggests that people act out roles in their daily interactions, similar to actors on a stage. This theory is based on the idea that people adjust their behavior to create certain impressions on others. And if you can recall, Goffman suggests that there are two stages, front and back. Front stage is where we put our best foot forward, and the backstage is where we are more at ease. In this episode, I argue that your theatrical mask will never stay on forever. And at some point, you realize that the key to managing your self perception is to realize that there is no fixed version of you, as well as if you focus too much on managing others' impressions, you'll never arrive at the conclusion that they are fickle. Now, while I ended the show advocating for every person to remove their theatrical mask and become their most authentic version, I failed to mention one key principle, and that being discernment. Now, the reason why discernment is important is because it helps you to guard your heart. We're living in a new level of authenticity. It's important to know how to steward yourself in various relationships. For example, it would take discernment to know whether a person has the emotional maturity to objectively listen to you, or if they simply don't have those tools in their toolbox. Now, it doesn't make that individual any less valuable. Rather, it is an honest assessment of their capabilities, which leads me to my primary point. Discernment is an act of honor. Why, you may ask? Well, it places value on where a person stands through the form of assessment. So, while that may seem like a very simple definition, I'm going to provide varying points to help bring it a little bit more to life. So, the first point, discernment is not degrading. It's quite easy to conflate discernment with being hyperjudgmental, and that is not the case. It's possible to disagree with a person without devaluing them. And returning to our example from before, if a person lacks the emotional tools to engage in an objective conversation, that doesn't make them a villain. Rather, it shows that perhaps, again, they don't have those tools in their toolbox. The second point is discernment is based off of action, not intent. Now, as a person who has a naturally optimistic outlook on life, this lesson took a few years for me to learn, especially when it came to my interpersonal relationships. While an individual may have the best of intentions and communicate their will to change, their actions ultimately reveal their value system. And so discernment in this moment equips us to make an honest assessment based on a person's behavior. And now that doesn't mean that you doom the person to the ninth circle of Dante's Inferno, but rather it allows you to make an assessment based off of your needs and the other person's capabilities. And also vice versa. Which leads me to my next point. Discernment raises the social standard. When stewarded well, this principle can raise the standard in any social environment. Because if we understand it as an act of honor and placing value on an individual, then it provides us the leverage point to elevate our means of socialization. Let me give you an example. Sometimes in conversations with loved ones or with friends, I can sometimes hear them lead their statement with a bit of belittlement. And I immediately hop in and I check them real time. I have them start over their sentence because I don't want to hear I suck at this, I'm still working on this, or you know me with a negative tone. I'm like, no, 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 no. Tell me who you are in this moment and tell me what to expect moving forward. And that's why discernment can cut away from the nonsense and allows you to purely see a person for where they are and encourage them to become a better version of themselves. Now, this goes to the next point. Discernment is connected to your well-being. And if I can be completely honest, this might be my favorite point because it was an area that I struggled with deeply in my life. You see, growing up, my parents raised me to treat every person with the same level of dignity, but they didn't necessarily equip me with the tools to discern what relationships were healthy and which ones were not healthy. Because again, while every person is valuable, they don't add equal value to your life. And foolishly, I invested time into people and relationships where those individuals didn't hold the same weight. And again, it doesn't make them any less valuable, but it did impact the balance of reciprocity in our relationship, which ultimately impacted my well-being and things being kind of like, not really well balanced. Which goes now to my final point. Discernment is not glorified pessimism. Now, it is quite easy to allow traumatic experiences to become the filters on how we process our social lives. But that is a false sense of discernment. If we understand that this principle is an act of honor, it allows us to reflect on all value systems and determine if a person or opportunity is good for our well-being. Now, I'm slightly going to go off script here, but there is a huge difference between trauma dumping and truth telling. Trauma is unhealthy exposure regurgitated as a false social standard in your life, while truth telling is your ability to extrapolate the truth of the matter with a sober judgment. And that is why discernment is an act of honor. It places value not only on the stance of another person, but it reaffirms yours. And yeah, I think that's a wrap for today. So hopefully you enjoyed this cheeky episode and you have a fresh perspective on not only what discernment entails, but how it can be viewed as a tool to value yourself and others. I want to leave you with a few relational resources to complement today's episode. The first is a book called Relational Intelligence, written by Dr. Dharius Daniels. In his book, he creates an action plan to help you get smart about how you surround yourself with various people. As he leverages biblical frameworks for choosing relationships, he provides you with practical tools to help you define, discern, align, assess, and activate your relationships to unlock your greatest potential. The second and final resource is a song, and this is by one of my favorite musical groups called Majidjordan, and it's titled Been Through That. Now, while discernment is powerful, it can't prevent you from all of life's social hiccups. And at times, you just have to acknowledge that you've been through some things. So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and attach not only those two resources, but our artist spotlight, Christy Kioko, to today's episode bio. And yeah, I think that's all I have for you today. And until next time, have a powerful day.